There's several stories. First is about that king who relinquished his throne and presented himself to a great Sufi sheikh and asked him, would he be accepted? He wanted to become the sheikh's humble servant. The sheikh said to him, yes, you can be accepted on probation, and your task will be to take out the rubbish each day. So the king undertook this task daily, dutifully doing what he was designated to do. But after some time, the other disciples took great pity on him and said to the master, Master, he's been a king. Why is it that he has to continue for so long with this menial task? And the Sufi sheikh said, he is not yet ready, but you can test him in any way you like. So the very next day, one of the disciples, when the king was taking the rubbish, purposely bumped him so that the rubbish spread all over the ground. The king pulled himself up to his full height and looked at the disciple and said, if I were still a king, you would be punished as a king would do. And then he collected the rubbish and took it out as usual. When the disciple reported this to the sheikh said, you see, I told you he was not ready. But after some time, the sheikh said to the disciples, test him again. So one of the disciples again went and bumped the king when he was carrying the rubbish, and it spread all over the floor once again. The king merely glared at the disciple and bent down to pick up the rubbish again. Again, when this was reported to the sheikh said, he is not yet ready. So later, again, the sheikh said, test him once again. And another disciple went and did the same thing, bumping the king so that all the rubbish spread on the ground. But the king did not look up. He made no reaction. He merely bent down and collected the rubbish and took it to its place. When this was reported to the sheikh said, bring him to me. He is now ready. Then there's a story, the rabbi who came into the synagogue and stood up at the lectern and was reading the Holy Torah. But then he came to a certain passage, and suddenly he began to rock back and forth and wail with tears flowing down his face. I am nothing. I am nothing. After a while, the cantor came in and saw the rabbi in this state and went up and read the same passage that the rabbi had read, and he too began to rock and weep and wail, I am nothing, I am nothing. And then the janitor came in to sweep the passageway and saw the rabbi and the cantor in this state, and he too began to rock and weep and wail, I am nothing, I am nothing. And then the rabbi stopped his intoning, looked over at the at the janitor, and then he elbowed the cantor and said, "Look who think he's nothing." So the other day, the question was asked, what is the difference between being humbled, and all of us know what it's like to have been brought to our knees with our heads on the ground. What is the difference between being humbled and being humble?
After the other day, I thought one is a process and one is a state of being.
Yes.
And they lead, one leads to the other.
Yes. But we can clearly see the difference between the state that we could say that we live in now and that process, that painful experience of being humbled again and again. But as you say, could it be that being humbled has enabled us to arrive at this place where we can live in a state of humility, not claiming anything for ourselves, not preceding everything with an I did that. There are other stories about that. But it becomes very clear for us, the difference. Being humbled, being humiliated, brought down. And how would we describe this state? Certainly, it is humility, but it's not bowing before life, is it, for us? It's not subjugating ourselves, being slaves. So how would you describe where you are now?
I think the king found out, because I think what he found was that whatever he was doing, it comes from a loving place, doesn't it?
Yes.
And so it's not a menial task, it's just the task.
That's right.
Mm.
So we could describe that as being a state too.
Mm.
We don't demean ourselves. We don't think that cleaning a toilet or bowing before someone or weeping with someone abases ourselves. That has great meaning for us and a reason to know the difference. So as was said the other day, there's no teaching here. And perhaps you realize by now that every story that's told, and many of them being quite opposite to the others, is merely to break down our conditioned thinking about the meanings of words, in fact, and states. So So it's the same with these stories also. To clearly know from our experience the difference between being humbled and being humble, we have the opportunity to recognize where we are. This is why it's said again and again, we have to know who we are and we have to know what we do. So to let go of our conditioned thinking about the meaning of life in the various ways it's become a conditioning for us is to allow us to recognize just that, who we are and what we do. So look at this state, not bowing before anyone. We can be in front of a cabbage or a king. Isn't it so? No? Not needing to feel lesser or higher. Humility. What is it for you?